Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 321 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Thursday, August 1st. The calendar has turned to the month where there will be football games in the NFL preseason, but football games nonetheless. There will be college football games. Those actually do matter. And as you can see, I'm joined once again by my regular co-host, however we want to describe it, Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. Perk back in action after a couple of days on the shelf. Glad you're feeling better, my man, and good to have you aboard again.
Yeah, it's good to be back, man. COVID got me there, man. So I was gone for a couple of days, but came back today. Good practice today. I liked it, man. No pads, but I liked what I saw out there.
I did. I will take exception, and we're going to get to all of this at some point after the history lesson, but I'm going to take exception. And I don't know if it was your outlet or another of the outlets saying that the defense had won the day. And I was like,
really? Yeah, that was me.
I'm not sure about that. That was you? Okay. Well, we're gonna get some. We might have to do. We haven't done.
All right, let's do it.
Rock'em Sock'em Robots. It's gonna wait. We are gonna do the history lesson. Interesting one here. The year was 2021. This is episode 321. And for those wondering, once we hit 2024, since there is no history there, I'm going to come up with something different for a history lesson nugget. And by all means, please, in the comments, if you have suggestions, please share them. 2021, this was the year. We're going to start with the draft. This was Brian Flores' third year as Dolphins head coach, would become the final year. The year was dominated by, for the most part, and through the trade deadline, about Deshaun Watson speculation and the Dolphins' kind of semi-public flirtation with him. Nothing came to fruition. In the draft, the Dolphins made a gigantic move. They were scheduled to have the third overall pick, courtesy of the Houston Texans and the Laramie Tunsil trade. Moved down to 12 in what I thought was an absolutely fantastic trade with the 49ers, where they picked up two future number ones to move down 9 spots. And if you contrast that to 2013, when the Dolphins did the opposite, they went from 12 to 3. They didn't give up 2 additional first-round picks to the Raiders. They gave up a second-round pick. So think about that in terms of, the return for that jump up in the first round. So to me, I was like ecstatic at the time. And immediately after, the Dolphins turned around, traded that 12th overall pick to the Philadelphia Eagles for number 6. And surrendered one of those 2 extra first-round picks they had gotten for the 49ers. That I didn't like quite as much. In the end, however, the Dolphins went from 3 to 6, picked up 1 additional first-round pick. Overall, pretty good. And with that 6th overall pick, as we all know, the Dolphins selected Jalen Waddle from Alabama. The Eagles, ironically, at number 12, they used that number 12 pick to move up to 10 to take Devontae Smith. And it's really difficult to complain about the selection of Jalen Waddle, other than perhaps, and this is where, Perk, I'm going to get your opinion on this, perhaps the guy who was selected right after Jalen Waddle has become one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL, and I'm talking about Penei Sewell out of Oregon, now with the Detroit Lions. And again, it's really difficult to complain about Waddle and what he's done and how he fits into what the Dolphins do offensively, while at the same time getting a franchise tackle also has major value.
Yeah, I would say, Poop, that with Mike McDaniel being here, that's what makes Waddle the perfect fit because of this offense. If not, you probably could have had a legit argument that, Sewell would be a better fit for a team that really has had offensive line problems for, I don't know, a decade. We'll just limit it at that. No complaints about Jalen Waddle, but the perfect fit for this offense.
Correct. But we do need to point out, however, that when they made the selection, Mike McDaniel wasn't around yet, right. Neither was Tyreek Hill. So the identity of the offense at that time wasn't quite this track team type of team. So, and then we should point out,
it wasn't, but at least Waddle did have 1,000 yards and bear fruit immediately from that standpoint. So, but you're right. Yeah, McDaniel, this offense wasn't in place when he was selected.
No, he did. And I mean, Jalen Waddle, as a rookie, set the NFL rookie record for receptions. In his second year, led the NFL in yards per catch. And then last year, even though he battled injuries throughout the season, still finished with over 1,000 yards. So again, it's impossible to complain about the Jalen Waddle pick. We're just looking at all other options. And it also needs to be pointed out that the player who wound up going number 12 in that draft was Micah Parsons. So if you want to play that game, the Dolphins could have had Micah Parsons and 2 future first-round picks. Anyway, then moving on to the regular season 2021, that was the year the Dolphins had the nasty 7-game losing streak after they won their opener at New England and Tua's first opening day start. And it was weird because it didn't feel like the Dolphins were a horrible team. It just felt like they were a team that just kept finding ways to lose. Whether it was Jacksonville giving up that late completion to set up the game-winning field goal or allowing Atlanta to drive down the field for another game-winning field goal, it was just one bad thing after another. It didn't help that Tua missed 3 starts early in the season after A.J. Epinesa planted his, I don't know if it was shoulder pad or his helmet right into his rib after he just zipped by, I believe it was Jesse Davis in week 2. And then Jacoby Brissett, who is a serviceable backup, but then faced a difficult task the following 3 weeks of facing the Raiders, the Buccaneers, and the Colts, who were 3 pretty good teams at the time. And Dolphins went 0-3 in those. And that game against the Raiders, if you recall, they had a shot to win. There was a pass in the end zone in overtime to Will Fuller, where very easily could have been called DPI. And if we're talking Will Fuller, we have to mention the, how shall we put it, unfortunate foray into Fuller territory where he played, 5 snaps and wound up on IR, never to be seen again. Big props to Brian Flores for keeping the team working and trying and not giving up after they were 1-7. They had the dramatic turnaround, won 7 straight games, a lot of it because of their defense, a lot of it because they were facing, if we're going to be honest about it, they had a run where they were facing some pretty crappy quarterbacks, but they took advantage of it, got themselves in a position where, lo and behold, they actually controlled their destiny. Game at Tennessee, and I think it may have been right after the New Year's or late December. Horrible weather, rainy, cold, and the Dolphins got spanked 34-3, and that was the end of the season. So what stood out to you in terms of the season itself once we got going?
Really, just the stick-to-itness. You lose 7 games and you think that's it, that there's no reason to even keep trying, and they did, and they got themselves back into contention. So, hats off to that team for that. And then everything blew up after the season, of course. But excellent comeback. Strong way to finish. Absolutely.
Okay, so now we're going to move into practice today as we begin August. And I'm going to start with this very simple question. Perk, are you crazy? The defense won the day. Are you serious? Go ahead.
Here's what I thought. It was a blitz day, and there was a lot of pressure on Tua and the other quarterbacks also, Mike White and Skylar Thompson. Emmanuel Ogbah, good day pass rushing. Chop Robinson, good day pass rushing. Quentin Bell, good day pass rushing. Even Jalen Ramsey got in there on a blitz that he was holding his hands up like to the ref as he was chasing Tua, like, come on, give me that call. Javon Holland got in there. I think there was a defensive holding, though, on that play that he got in there. I saw a lot of examples of sacks. I also saw some examples of the edge rushers setting the edge. I saw some examples of the linebackers getting in there and making some tackles. So, Tua had an outstanding day. Jalen Waddle, had an outstanding day. And Waddle has probably had the best camp of any offensive player, I think. But, when you didn't have Kendall Fuller in there, he was on a rest day. Yeah. And let's face it, Poop, a lot of those passes to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey were going up against Ethan Bonner. They were picking on Ethan Bonner today.
Whoa.
So I know Ramsey got – okay, go ahead.
Hey, hold on. There's a sequence. Let me stop you right there. You can come back here, but I have to interject. and this is where I'm going
Okay.
to go like this: the Rock'em Sock'em Robot.
Let's do it.
In the totality of the practice, I agree the defense had the better of the offense. If we're going to take the first offense, it had its moments, particularly if you remember, like with the couple of last drive, one that started from the 35, last one started from midfield, where the offense moved the ball easily down the field. There was like, was it 34-yard touchdown pass from Tua to Julian Hill down the middle of the field, where somebody on defense really blew an assignment because he was wide open.
Right.
Then they were, because you mentioned the staying away from Ramsey. I don't remember if it was that particular period or the one series or the one after where Tua went at Ramsey 3 consecutive times. And it was one of those where on the first down, Ramsey was all over River Craycraft.
Right.
No shot at a completion, went out of bounds. On second down, if you recall, Ramsey had really, really good coverage and Tua absolutely threaded the needle, put it basically the only place he could put it for the completion. And then on the third down, Waddle beat Ramsey pretty easily on a deep slant for a long touchdown. So that's two drives where I think one started at midfield, the other one at the 35, where the first team offense beat the first team defense. So this is why I'm not so quick to go defense won the day. And you mentioned Jalen Waddle having had a great camp. Again, this is my first week of viewing, absolutely. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. From what I've seen here, every time Tyreek Hill is on the field, this is not exactly a shocker. Nobody can cover him. He's always open.
That's true.
Even if he's not making the catch, the dude's always open. And it's, again, like I said, and we'll talk about Tua a little bit later. We discussed the Tua and this is actually my phrase here, the cheat motion commotion. How's that? How's that for a headline? The cheat motion commotion. So, and part of it is because they're operating with second and third teamers on the offensive line more often than not in the receiving core as well. But again, not a whole lot from Mike White and Skylar Thompson. I mean, it's just not happening.
Yeah, and look, Poop, let's be honest, not a lot from wide receivers not named Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Like Craycraft, okay, Braxton Berrios, okay, but these guys haven't done much.
No, I thought River had a very good day, actually.
I thought River was okay. I want to see, I want to see something that tells me that he's made progress. And River is a good player. I see the same River Craycraft, and that's not a slight at him at all. I see the same River Craycraft I've seen the previous 2 seasons.
But that's who he is, and it's also why.
I know.
But it was also why, to me, he's a slam dunk to make the team because he's highly dependable.
Yep.
There's nothing spectacular about his game, but he will get open. He will generally catch the ball when it's thrown in his direction.
Yep.
And he's maybe the best blocking wide receiver on the team. And there's a high level of trust. And we go back to the thing with the wide receiver competition that they have. And by the way, Tyreek gave us a score today, said it was 4-1 for his team versus Jalen Waddle's team. And Tyreek was wound up with the first overall pick in that competition for wide receiver practice battles. And I guess they get, I don't know the exact scoring, but it's for blocks, catches and all that. And you would lose points for a missed block and a missed assignment. And Tyreek's had the first pick in that draft each of the past 2 years. And he's gone with River Craycraft. And he kind of discussed why today was basically because, well, he blocks and he does what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, look, here's what I saw today. I saw some outstanding plays from Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua. Really not anything outstanding from anybody else on offense. Julian Hill had the long pass. But as you said, the other 2 quarterbacks, they didn't do much.
Nope.
River had a River Craycraft day. And again, River Craycraft is – your backup receiver. He didn't do starter receiver things today. So, yes, I give River Craycraft credit. I like him. He's a quality player, but he didn't do anything special today. I just didn't see anything special from anybody else on the offense. On the defense, again, Quentin Bell, Emmanuel Ogbah. You can go Chop Robinson. You can go down a list of guys. And look, Ethan Bonner had a rough day today, but I thought there were more defenders that had strong days and made better plays above their pay grade. I'll put it like that than offense.
Why don't you just admit you're a River hater? You got guys,
I like
unleash,
you know
unleash
what?
on Perk.
You know what? I still want to do the River Craycraft I'm ambidextrous story. I talked to him about that last year when I noticed that he was throwing passes in warm-ups with both hands.
Nice.
And I talked to him, and he's ambidextrous. So I would like to tell that part of the River Craycraft story. I have to see something. Look, this was the number one offense in the league, right? And it was number one because of Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle. And that's all I saw again today.
You're forgetting about Mostert and Achane?
Achane.
No, you said they were number one in the league because of Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle. How about Mostert and Achane?
Yeah, but they didn't do anything special today.
I'm not talking about today.
Okay, yeah. I would. Okay, Mostert and Achane. Okay, I'll put them in there. Yeah, okay. I'll put them in there.
I will say this on the flip side. I'm still waiting to be impressed by Malik Washington, and I only bring him up because I saw a story online earlier this week saying the Dolphins could have a major steal, one of the biggest steals with Malik Washington. And I'm sorry, gang, but I don't see it. First of all, I don't see him as a guy who gets necessarily open. And then today he struggled catching the ball. He had two passes that he clearly could have caught that borderline on pure drops. There was a throw from Skyler where he fit in the tight window. The throw was low. Malik had to go to the ground to catch it, but it wasn't like it bounced. It was just a low throw that he didn't come up with. And there was another one. He didn't catch the ball cleanly, and then it allowed Nick Needham to come in from the side and bat the ball away. And again, I'm just not seeing it. I'm also still waiting to be wowed by Jody Fortson Jr., who's a guy who, in my first viewing in minicamp, I was like, oh, there's something there. He was very intriguing to me, but he's like kind of struggling to catch the ball, and that's supposed to be his forte. That's not a good sign. And one other quick thing, you mentioned defenders who stood out. I'm going to throw out Zach Sealer a couple of times. There was one play, and I think it's a highlight that's might be on the Dolphins social media feed of Tua throwing a bomb to Tyreek. Well, that play came after Sealer was right next to Tua, and then he basically went like this because you don't touch the quarterback in practice. And then Tua sidestepped after Sealer stopped on the play and then made that. It was a great throw, but in a game, that's not a 45-yard completion. That's a sack.
Right. And I thought there were a few plays like that by the defense today. Fortson, going back to your point, Fortson had one pass today over the middle that was thrown behind him, I think by Mike White, but a catchable pass that he dropped. And you know what, Poop, I was kind of looking at the tight ends during they did the one-on-ones, and on the near field to by the fans and the media and everybody, they had I'm trying to get it right, wide receivers and cornerbacks, and then and that was Tua and Skyler throwing, and on the other field they had Mike White, and he was throwing to running backs and tight ends against linebackers and safeties, and they're both throwing from the 10-yard line. And I was trying to watch those tight ends to see, what are you guys doing down there in the red zone? Are you getting open? Are you fighting? And I didn't see a whole lot that was different than what I expected to see. Durham Smythe is capable, but I didn't see Fortson assert himself. I didn't see that. And so at a certain point, you can't blame Mike McDaniel for not making these calls to the tight ends or some of these things that I complain about, that, the play calling isn't diverse enough. Yeah. Because I'm really looking, Poop, to see, okay, what are these tight ends doing? Do they deserve the ball down here in these situations? Third and short, goal line, red zone. I thought Durham Smythe did a little bit last year, but he's not what he does. Mike Gesicki, he didn't show me that 2 years ago. He didn't show it last year in New England. So you have to give McDaniel a break on that. This year, I'm looking hard at Jonnu Smith, who's not out there every day, and Jody Fortson. I still have not seen it from the tight end position. And so at a certain point, Poop, when the talent is not out there and McDaniel can't make the call, then you have to go back to Chris Greer and say, well, you got to go back to the drawing board. And I know that they're trying, but I just don't see these guys getting open. So consequently, I can't blame Mike McDaniel for not calling plays for them, Tua not throwing to them. And so right now, that's kind of where I am, that the tight ends have to tighten up their game. They have to stand up for themselves. They have to fight harder to get open. I have not seen it yet from the tight end position.
No, and this is where I should point out that John Embry indicated to us that they're on a rotating basis where one day Durham Smythe gets a day off, and then the next day it's Jonnu Smith. So Jonnu Smith did not participate. And this is where Jonnu Smith needs to be the guy. If the tight ends are going to be involved in the passing game in 2024, it needs to be Jonnu Smith. That's the guy you brought in here. Jody Fortson, to me, again, was very intriguing in the spring. Right now, he's trending like a guy who's not making the 53. Which is a little disappointing, but, such is life in the big city. So it's life in the big city. Yeah. Where else are we going to go with this conversation? Okay, the Tyreek Hill and the cheat motion commotion. So there was an item on Pro Football Talk on Thursday night. Apparently, they're adding language to the rule book saying that the cheat motion, the quote-unquote cheat motion, was the term that was initiated by Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers head coach. That's the play where Tyreek goes in motion laterally before the snap, and when the ball is snapped, he's still in motion, and then he turns upfield very quickly at the snap. And then sometimes last year, if we're going to be honest about it, there were a couple of times when I was like looking and like, ooh, he turned upfield too quickly. And based on the additional language, they're saying that you're not allowed to do that. Well, you're not allowed to do that beforehand, because that's an illegal forward motion. And Tyreek got away with it a couple of times. So my interpretation of the additional language in the rule book suggests it's going to be more of an emphasis, and that the officials are going to be looking very intently at that to make sure that when Tyreek's running sideways at the snap, that he doesn't get a head jump going forward. It's allowed in the CFL. And you see 4 guys running towards the line of scrimmage at the same time from the backfield. It's not allowed in the NFL. Tyreek got away with it a couple of times last year. He was not flagged once. He had 2 penalties. I did the research today. He had 2 penalties last year. One was for taunting. The other one was for unsportsmanlike conduct. None for that. So he's going to have to be cognizant of that. And if he gets away with it, and again, it's not a penalty if they don't call it, right?
That's it. You know what, Poop? Every year, as you know, the referees talk to us at training camp. And so I'm sure that this is going to be a topic of conversation. It's Poop, to make that call at a crucial point of the game. The whole time, all the defensive players are going to be yelling at the ref. He's watch him, the sideline, watch him.
Yep.
Boy, Poop, that's a call that could erase a crucial play, a crucial situation. I will be very, very interested to see how they police this in preseason, and especially early in the season, early in games. Do you warn Tyreek, hey, you better watch yourself, or do you just throw the flag? I wonder what that process is going to be like.
No, I think you talk to him about it, and it's one of those things where, again, because you mentioned this, where the opposing sideline is going to be like, oh, watch him. I think if you recall last year, who was it? The right tackle for the Chiefs, Taylor. Juwan Taylor came over from Jacksonville. I mean, that dude was coming up in his stance a hair before the snap. I mean, constantly. And the rest were not calling it. And there was a lot of bitching, and rightfully so, about, dude, call it. And eventually they did call. Oh, or was it that he was lining up behind the right guard. It's one of those two things.
Yeah.
But he was getting away with it because the refs were refusing to call it, and there was a lot of outcry about it. And eventually, they started calling him on it. And again, it's not going to make a gigantic difference for Tyreek. I mean, he can still. Again, the idea isn't so much like whatever advantage he gained from starting to go upfield before the snap isn't terribly significant. What really helps is the fact that he's running as the ball is snapped, and he's not like a standing start, and that's really made a difference. Dolphins made a killing with that last year.
Yeah, and I think the big thing there is it's Tyreek, and this dude can corner so quickly. I don't know that many other players in the league, even with the running start, could make that move as effectively. Here's another thing, Poopa. It's interesting you said that about the Kansas City game. I did a story today on the snapping, the quarterback center exchange. And one of the things that I had asked Liam Eichenberg about, and you might have been there for that interview last week, but I asked him about, actually getting off the ball. And he said that, one of the things that he tries to make sure of is he gets off the ball quickly, that he gets out of his stance very quickly. And I kind of laughed and I said, well, you need to get off like a left tackle. I said, they never called it on the left tackles. And he laughed and he goes, yeah. He goes, last year I always tried to beat Tehran off the line of scrimmage. They don't call that on the tackles. I asked Bevel about that today, and he was like, yeah, that as it relates to the center. And so I wonder. This is a long way around. They give the left and right tackles leeway. I wonder how much leeway they'll give Tyreek. I wonder if they give him any leeway. But yeah, you always see the offensive tackles just a hair before the ball is snapped. And I wonder if they allow Tyreek that same kind of leeway, or if it's no, we're not giving you anything.
Yeah, I think the fact that if they put in additional language in the rule book, that they may be a little bit more strict about it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is like I would equate it to the NBA where they don't call traveling anymore. You could have, have two suitcases and basically board a bus on the court, and they still wouldn't call traveling. So again, like I said, it's not a fault. The foul, they don't call it. Tyreek also addresses contract situation. And tell me if you read anything, what's the word I'm looking for? Ominous about his statement of like, I'm here, I'm practicing, I'm letting my agent, Drew Rosenhaus, talk to the Dolphins. But right now I'm here and I'm practicing every day. Were you there for that? But anyway.
No. But I read the transcript.
Okay.
Yeah. Not his quote. I read his quote. That's what I meant.
Do you take anything ominous from that? As in, right now I'm good, but
I did notice that. You know what? I would find it hard to believe Tyreek would walk out during camp. I think that's something you do before camp, to walk out or to not walk out, to hold in, because he wouldn't leave camp and subject himself to a fine, to hold in the middle of camp and break up this harmonious camp after Jalen Waddle got his extension, Tua got his extension, and to break up the harmony. I just don't see Tyreek being that kind of guy. You would have to be kind of a low down, dirty, me guy, wouldn't you? Let's put it out there. I mean, look, I'm all about taking care of yourself, Poop, but at this point, when this team had to work so hard for the Tua thing to put them back at square one, I could not see that.
But let me play devil's advocate here. Would he not have a case to say, listen, you took care of Waddle, you took care of Tua, each of them were under contract. Yep. Why are you not taking care of me, who, oh, by the way, is the two-time team MVP?
I think that the Dolphins are smart enough, and their relationship with Drew Rosenhaus, Tyreek's agent, is good enough that they could say, we got you. And to me, once again, the fact that they locked up Tua, they're going to take care of Tyreek. If I'm the Dolphins, I don't want Tua out there without Tyreek. So they're going to take care of Tyreek. When that happens, I don't know. And now this could be a situation, Poop, where, if you wait on Brandon Ayuk and Jamar Chase, Well, maybe that does affect Tyreek, because if Tyreek really wants to be in the top 5, because I guess technically now you could sign him and say you're in the top 5, and the top 5 price is down here. Yeah. After those guys sign, the top 5 price goes up there. So maybe that's a factor. But I would rely more on the Dolphins-Drew Rosenhaus relationship to get this thing done and to keep harmony.
Okay, fair point. We were talking about snaps earlier. I should mention there was no muffed exchange, quarterback center exchange at all today. There were no shotgun snaps that sailed directly over the head of the quarterback. I did notice one bobble after I think it was a quarterback exchange, one slight bobble, and there was one low shotgun snap, but it didn't hit the ground. I mean, it may have been like ankle high, a little bit higher. So, and then you mentioned earlier you were not there for the entirety of Tyreek Hill's presser because you went over to talk to Willie Snead IV, the Dolphin newcomer wide receiver, whose, shall we say, unfortunate tweet resurfaced. It was a tweet from January 9th or 8th, the night the Dolphins were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, which in essence basically said the Dolphins are not going anywhere to a soft as bleep. Shockingly enough, that tweet no longer exists. I don't even see him having a Twitter account anymore. So, Chris, you went over there and you talked to him and asked him about that tweet, and his reaction was
very mature. I was very impressed with Willie Snead's answer to this question, and you guys can go on social media and see it. But basically, he said that's the way that I was feeling at the time. I said something that I regret. The tweet has been deleted. I talked to Tua last night. Everything is cool. We're moving forward, and so that's the end of it. That's the end of it. Willie Snead said the right thing. I guess he's cool with Tua, and that's the end of it. But let me say, Willie Snead was very polished, very mature, and look, he knew that question was coming. Everybody knew that question was coming. Dolphins media relations prepared him for it, and Willie handled it like a pro. He talked about it. He showed contrition. He told us what happened as far as talking to Tua. And then he turned the conversation to something positive. And congratulations to him. Expert job by Willie Snead. I have no problems with the young man.
No, and as you mentioned, big props for the way he handled it, because he could have backtracked, no, not me, or I don't want to talk about it that, and been confrontational about it. And he did a mea culpa, which was very cool. And he also added, and this is based on Perk's story on South Florida Sun-Sentinel.com, that he grew up in West Palm Beach. He really wanted the Dolphins to win that night, and he was just talking out of frustration.
Yeah.
So I spoke to Wes Welker. I was among the few reporters. The assistant coaches, the offensive assistant coaches, talked to us before practice on Thursday. I asked Wes Welker how familiar he was with Willie Snead IV and what he thought he could bring to the wide receiver position, and said he's been a fan of his game for quite a long time. Now, Dolphins have a lot of injury issues at wide receiver. Craycraft is wearing a compression sleeve on one of his legs. I think the left leg. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember. Odell Beckham Jr. is on PUP. We saw him running on Wednesday. Did not see him today. Taj Washington is on IR. And Taj Washington, by the way, wore number 82. Now Willie Snead is wearing number 82, which means, for those who might have, I don't know if that means anything, but the idea that Taj Washington is going to be one of the two guys who the Dolphins are going to designate as returning from preseason IR at the time of the cuts to 53, not seeing it. And then we have the Eric Ezukama mystery, which has me kind of, here comes a Joe Philbin quote, queasy, because last year, out of nowhere, neck injury that dates back to his days at Texas Tech, didn't play again during the season. What's going on with Eric Ezukama? He hasn't practiced. I think it's 3 days now. What's the deal?
Yeah, it was just kind of a mystery disappearance. And Poop, Ezukama last season, training camp, started off so promising, right? They were kind of using him in kind of this Deebo Samuel role and handing him the ball. And we were like, wow, Easy's game has expanded. And then came that mysterious neck injury, and you really didn't hear from him again. So he's a good guy, a really good guy. When you talk to him in the locker room, the few times that I've talked to him in the locker room, he's really positive and upbeat, like most players on this team, actually. But, yeah, you hope Eric Ezukanma gets back out there on the field and gives himself a chance.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's still time. But again,
what do you think of this wide receiver crew as of right now on August 1st with who's healthy and who's not? There's not a lot of meat on the bone, is there?
No, there isn't. And I think we came into training camp with this notion that it was a really, really, really deep group. And no, it's not. I mean, what you have is a 1-2 punch that's as good as any in the NFL with Tyreek and Waddle. Odell Beckham's a very, very good number 3, except he hasn't been on the field yet.
Yep.
Craycraft is solid, dependable, but he's not a difference maker. Berrios, kind of the same thing. And we asked Danny Crossman, by the way, the special teams coordinator, before practice Thursday, whether based on Jalen Waddle's comments earlier this week, it was kind of said that Berrios was the kickoff returner, and we got we'll see, a kind of non-answer answer. And outside of that, and again, the fact that Malik Washington, to me, I don't know how he was in the first week of training camp, the first few practices, the first 4 actually. This week, like I said, I'm waiting to be impressed by the dude because I'm not in the least. And even in the mini camps, I didn't see anything that was overly exciting. So, yeah, no, it's a pretty thin group actually.
And so as you look at wide receiver and corner, where you've had one missing starter, right? Kendall Fuller, we're getting a rest day. And now in the nickel, Ethan Bonner is in there, and they were going at him pretty hard. And when OBJ is not out there, one missing person from each poop. And these were groups that I felt pretty good about coming into the season, the corner and the wide receiver. And now each is missing one starter. And it's like, so I don't know. Depth has gotten the Dolphins to the playoffs each of the last 2 years, right? We know the injury problems they've had. I like their depth still overall, but I'm a little bit concerned at those 2 positions. It's second week, so let's not go overboard. But I'm a little bit concerned how they look with just an injury to one starter or one starter sideline, because Kendall Fuller is not injured.
Yeah, no premature evaluation here, Park. No, I think we went into training camp thinking the Dolphins were really, really deep in the secondary. We were really, really deep at wide receiver. We're really, really deep at tight end as well.
Yep.
Except because of injuries and some guys not performing as well. And again, we need to mention it's really, really early, but maybe the depth may have been overstated a bit, but there is depth at certain positions. We should mention, we talked about the cornerbacks, and this is some bookkeeping here. Guys who didn't work on Thursday, we mentioned Kendall Fuller on defense. Cam Smith again was out with that leg injury. No Anthony Walker Jr. I think it's a couple of days he's been out.
Yep.
Did not see Neville Gallimore today, the defensive tackle. On offense, Jonnu Smith wasn't out there. Savon Ahmed's not practiced for a few days. Didn't see Tehran. Tehran was out there, but I didn't see him do anything. And there were a couple of other guys. Ezukanma didn't practice, and I'm missing somebody here.
You mentioned Fuller.
Somebody else on offense. It was 4 and 4. I have it in my notes, but I'm trying to think here. It wasn't a quarterback. Was it a running back? Mustard was there. Chris Brooks was there. Jeff Wilson. Anyway, it's not. Yeah. I'm not going to keep going because that makes for a very boring podcast. In fact, it's such boring podcasting. We should wrap up the show right now. So, on that note, please like, subscribe, share, download, take screenshots. I don't know everything you do. We appreciate you watching. Want to thank Perk again as always. Perk, we'll be back at it tomorrow. The Dolphins are practicing on Friday again. So until then, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow.